The Russian Conquest of Uzbekistan. Rule, Legacy, and Current Relations. During the 19th century, the Russian Empire aggressively expanded its borders into Central Asia, in an imperialist movement that culminated in the conquest of the lands that now make up Uzbekistan. This process profoundly transformed the region's political, economic, and social structures, leaving marks that are still visible today. The Russian imperial advance. The conquest of Uzbek territory was gradual and strategic. The Russians advanced in phases, aiming to control the region's three main khanates: Kokand, Bukhara, and Khiva, Muslim states with a long history of relative independence. In 1865, the Imperial Russian Army captured the city of Tashkent, one of Central Asia's most important urban centers. 2 years later, the Khanate of Bukhara was defeated and turned into a Russian protectorate, maintaining limited autonomy under Russian oversight. The Khanate of Khiva fell in 1873, and finally, the Khanate of Kokand was abolished in 1876 and directly annexed as part of the Turkestan province. These campaigns were justified by Moscow as civilizing missions, but were in fact aimed at controlling trade routes, natural resources, and countering British influence in the region, part of the so-called Great Game. Transformations under Russian rule. Russian administration brought significant changes. Railroads, fortresses, and imperial-style bureaucratic institutions were built. Agriculture was redirected toward intensive cotton production, directly serving the Russian textile industry, and this caused major environmental and social shifts. Meanwhile, the local population was largely excluded from governance and subjected to cultural Russification policies. Despite suppression of uprisings, such as the 1898 Andijan Rebellion, the period also saw limited cultural exchange and modernization, particularly in the cities. A local elite began to emerge, educated in Russian schools and engaged in political discourse by the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Lasting Russian influences. Even decades after the end of Soviet rule, Russian influence remains visible in Uzbekistan. Russian language. Still widely spoken, especially in urban areas and in business and diplomacy. Architecture. Cities like Tashkent retain Soviet-era buildings, avenues, and monuments. Education and science. The educational system and academic institutions still reflect structures and methods inherited from Russian and Soviet models. Infrastructure. Railways and irrigation systems built during Russian rule are still in use. Legacy of the Russian-Soviet period. The Russian and later Soviet periods deeply shaped modern Uzbekistan. The region's forced integration into the Soviet economy, especially the focus on cotton monoculture, left a controversial environmental legacy, most notably the Aral Sea disaster. Socially, large-scale migration of Russians and secularization of public life reshaped the cultural landscape. Nevertheless, these periods also brought advances in education, healthcare, and urban development. The legacy is therefore mixed, a combination of modernization, colonial domination, and environmental trauma. Current relations between Uzbekistan and Russia. Since gaining independence in 1991, Uzbekistan has taken a cautious approach toward Russia. The country strives to maintain its sovereignty while preserving important economic and strategic ties. Currently, Russia remains one of Uzbekistan's top trade partners. Millions of Uzbeks work as migrants in Russia, sending back crucial remittances. Uzbekistan participates in some Russia-led regional structures, such as the Collective Security Treaty Organization, CSTO, though with limited engagement. Simultaneously, Tashkent seeks to diversify its alliances, fostering strong relations with China, Turkey, and Western countries. In sum, the Russian conquest of the 19th century not only shaped Uzbekistan's historical path but also laid the foundation for a complex and dynamic relationship that continues to this day, a balancing act between historical ties, economic pragmatism, and national independence.